Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into something profound on Mark chapter 7. It's a passage that, honestly, it makes you think hard about what faith really looks like.
It really does.
So our mission here is to kind of unpack this big difference Jesus highlighted, you know, between like rigid traditions and real, genuine faith from the heart.
Yeah.
And we'll look at how sometimes human rules, even ones that start out okay, can end up, well, overshadowing what God actually commanded.
That's a great way to put it. And our source material for this, it's excerpts from a really detailed study on this chapter.
Okay.
It walks us through Jesus' teaching here on some pretty crucial things: ritual purity, what's really going on in the heart, and, the basic nature of faith itself.
So it sounds like a really key moment in his ministry.
Oh, absolutely. It lays down some truths that are still, incredibly relevant for us.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. Mark 7, verses 1 to 5. It kicks off with, it's basically a confrontation, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
You've got this delegation, Prussian Pharisees and Torah teachers, coming all the way from Jerusalem.
Right. This wasn't just a casual drop-by. They were there specifically to watch Jesus and his disciples, observing closely.
Almost like an inspection committee or something.
Exactly. And they're not just listening to his sermons, they're watching the day-to-day stuff.
And they zero in immediately on something, don't they? His disciples eating with ritually unclean hands.
Yes, meaning they hadn't done the enelat yadeim, the specific ceremonial hand washing.
Which sounds maybe like just washing your hands before eating to us, but it was way more than that for them.
Oh, absolutely. The study clarifies this wasn't actually a command from God, not in the written law.
Right.
It was a tradition of the elders, something that had built up over time, deeply ingrained, and pretty much everyone, all Judeans accepted it.
So part of their identity almost.
Totally. Following it showed you were, part of the community, religiously observant, and not following it, that was seen as basically identifying yourself as a non-Jew.
Wow. So it puts you outside the accepted group?
Yeah, outside the religious and social boundaries. So when they asked Jesus, why don't your disciples follow this tradition? Why eat with unclean hands? It's not just a simple question.
It's a challenge.
It's a big challenge to his authority, to whether he respects their established ways. It definitely put him on the spot.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Jesus' response in verses 6 to 8, he doesn't really debate the hand-washing thing itself.
No, he cuts right through that.
He calls them hypocrites,
Yeah.
straight up, and then quotes the prophet Isaiah to back it up. That's strong stuff.
It's incredibly direct, and the Isaiah quote he uses is powerful. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far away from me. Their worship of me is useless because they teach man-made rules as if they were doctrines. Jesus is making it crystal clear.
Yeah.
They're putting human tradition ahead of God's actual commands. Look, hand washing for health, fine, obviously good. Jesus isn't against being clean.
Of course not.
But when that practice gets elevated, becomes like an 11th commandment, then it starts to overshadow the original 10, right? Their focus shifted. It became about the external stuff, the rules, not a real heart connection with God.
And the study points out something pretty sobering here, that this isn't just ancient history.
No, sadly not.
It says this same pattern has happened throughout the ages in the body of Christ. And it's led to so many divisions, denominations within the church.
That's a really critical point the study makes, and something we really need to think about. Often, a practice starts out good, maybe helpful in one particular church setting.
Okay.
But over time, it gets solidified, written down, becomes a statement of faith.
Right.
And sometimes it even gets used to separate that group from, the wider body of believers. And in the worst cases, it becomes this man-made test. Do you do this thing? Okay, then you're really saved, or then you'll get into heaven.
And
At that point, the tradition has totally replaced the word of God. It's often a slow drift, not obvious at first, but the end result is serious.
Jesus didn't just leave it as a general principle, though. He gave a very specific example. Mark 7, verses 9 to 13, how traditions could literally nullify the word of God.
He did. He brings up one of the big ones, the 10 Commandments. Honor your father and your mother.
Foundational.
Absolutely. And he reminds them the law even prescribed a severe penalty for cursing parents.
Okay.
And then he points to this tradition that they had the practice of declaring something korban.
Korban. What's that mean exactly?
It literally means a gift to God. So someone could say, oh, the money or resources I might have used to support my elderly parents, that's korban now, dedicated to God. or the temple.
So it creates a loophole.
Precisely. By declaring it korban, they were essentially excused from their duty, their actual command from God, to care for their parents. Jesus calls it a fine art of departing from God's command.
Wow. Using piety to avoid responsibility.
Exactly. Using a religious tradition to get out of a direct divine command.
It's easy to look back and judge that, maybe. But the study asks, how does this apply now?
Yeah.
Because this isn't just something that happened 2,000 years ago.
No, it draws a very direct and maybe uncomfortable line to today.
Okay, how so?
Well, it connects it to situations where many Christian leaders might tell people to, neglect their own financial responsibilities.
Like bills or even family needs.
Yeah, exactly. Neglect those things and instead send the money to their ministry, calling it a seed offering or something similar. The study even mentions extreme cases. People sending large amounts, maybe money they couldn't really afford to send, to these ministries.
Okay, then what happens?
And then later, they're in desperate need themselves. They actually need help from other charities or ministries just for basics, like food or clothing.
Heartbreaking.
It is. And the study argues this goes directly against biblical principles of God providing for his people. It specifically mentions Psalm 37.25.
What does that say?
I was young and now I am old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. The point being made is, just like Jesus called out the leaders back then,
Right.
for putting tradition over God's commands, there's a similar dynamic today where some man-made ministry practices can actually undermine God's clear word about things like stewardship and family responsibility.
That's a really powerful parallel to consider. Okay, so moving on. Mark 7, verses 14 to 16. Jesus then turns to the crowd, right? And he says something completely revolutionary.
Yeah, he really grabs their attention. Listen to me, all of you, and understand this.
And what he says must have just blown their minds, given their focus on ritual purity.
Absolutely. He says, there is nothing outside a person which, by going into him, can make him unclean. Rather, it is the things that come out of a person which make a person unclean.
So, completely flipping the script on centuries of understanding.
Totally. It's not about the food you eat or what you touch or if you washed your hands in exactly the right way. It's deeper.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the study notes that some early manuscripts also have verse 16. Anyone who has ears that can hear, let him hear.
Meaning,
This isn't just common sense. It takes spiritual insight, spiritual ears to really get this truth. It's about an internal reality, not just external actions.
you can just imagine the disciples scratching their heads, though.
Oh, yeah. Verses 17 to 19 show them pulling Jesus aside later, asking him to explain this parable, this difficult saying.
And Jesus explains it, maybe a bit frustratedly.
Perhaps. He points out, look, food just goes in, passes through the body. It's temporary. It doesn't touch the real you, the heart.
Okay?
But what does defile you? What makes you truly unclean in God's eyes? That comes from inside, from the heart. And that stuff lasts.
And he doesn't leave it vague, does he? He lists specifics.
No, he lays it out very clearly in verses 20 to 23. What comes from within out of a person's heart. And it's a disturbing list.
What's on it?
Things like wicked thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, indecency, envy, slander, arrogance, foolishness.
Wow. That covers a lot of ground.
It does. And this is a massive theological shift. By saying this, Jesus effectively declares all foods ritually clean, no more dietary laws holding people back.
Right.
But the deeper point this study emphasizes is that religion cannot save you. No amount of rule following, ritual observance, external stuff, none of it can fix the heart problem.
So what casts?
Only saving faith in Jesus Christ, a real transformation from the inside out. That's where true purity comes from.
That really does change everything. Okay, so the scene shifts then. Mark 7, verses 24 to 26. Jesus tries to get away for some quiet time.
Yeah, he leaves that area and heads into Gentile territory, the region of Sor and Sidon, Tyre, and Sidon. He's explicitly trying to keep a low profile.
But that doesn't quite work out.
No, the study says keeping hidden proved impossible. And right away, this woman finds him. She's described as a Greek born in Syrophoenicia, a Gentile.
And she has a specific need.
A desperate one. Her young daughter has an unclean spirit, a demon, and she comes to Jesus, falls at his feet, just begging him to help her daughter.
This leads to what the study calls an interesting conversation.
Very interesting, yeah. Verses 27 to 30. Jesus' first response seems, well, kind of tough.
What does he say?
He says, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the children's food and toss it to their pet dogs."
Oof. That sounds harsh. Calling her daughter, her people, dogs.
Well, it was a common expression, actually. Children referred to the Jews, God's chosen people, who his mission was primarily focused on first. Dogs was a typical, albeit derogatory term for Gentiles. He seems to be stating the accepted order of things. His main mission was to Israel.
Okay, so maybe not as harsh as it first sounds, but still setting a boundary.
Right. But her reply, it's just brilliant.
What does she say back?
She says, "That is true, sir, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's leftovers."
Wow. That's quick thinking. She doesn't argue. She accepts his point.
Accepts the premise.
But then turns it around, basically saying, okay, even if I'm just a dog, can I have even the crumbs? Shows incredible humility, but also incredible faith and wit.
Exactly. And Jesus is clearly impressed. He commends her for that answer. He says, "For such an answer, you may go on home. The demon has left your daughter."
It's just like that.
Just like that. The healing happened instantly. She went home, found her daughter perfectly fine, the demon gone.
That's amazing.
And the study notes, her response showed she actually understood something profound. She got that Jesus' mission ultimately was for everyone, Jew and Gentile alike. And she understood that even a tiny bit of access to his power, just a crumb of faith, was enough. Which makes you think, doesn't it?
How so?
It raises that question for all of us listening. Do we have even that crumb of faith, that kind of persistent, understanding faith that pushes past obstacles and trusts him?
That's a good question. Okay, another healing follows this, right? Mark 7, verses 31 and 32.
Yes, another powerful moment. People bring a man to Jesus who was deaf and also had a serious speech impediment, and they just asked Jesus to lay his hand on him, clearly believing he could heal him.
And the way Jesus heals him is, well, it's pretty unique.
It really is. Verses 33 to 35 describe it. First, he takes the man aside, away from the crowd, gets him alone.
Interesting. Why do that?
Maybe for privacy, maybe to help the man focus. We don't know for sure. Then the actions are very physical, very tangible. He puts his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spits maybe onto his own finger and touches the man's tongue.
Very hands-on.
Very. Then he looks up to heaven, gives this deep groan or sigh, and commands, "Hip attach."
Which means?
Be opened, and instantly the man could hear perfectly, and his tongue was loosened. He could speak clearly.
Incredible. And the study contrasts this with, well, with modern healers.
Yeah, it makes a point about the contrast with so-called faith healers of our day.
So, what's the difference?
The key difference seems to be the lack of spectacle here. Jesus wasn't putting on a show for a crowd.
Right, he took the man aside.
Exactly. And the study notes that sometimes Jesus did use physical things, aids to healing like mud or a physical touch. But it argues these were always based on the circumstances and the amount of faith of the one being healed. It wasn't some magic formula or a performance piece. It was personal, responsive, focused on real healing, not drawing attention.
That makes sense. But then, verses 36 and 37, after this amazing personal healing, Jesus tells people not to talk about it.
Yeah, he strictly ordered them, tell no one. But predictably, maybe, the more he insisted, the more zealously they spread the news. People were just completely overcome with amazement.
So why? Why did Jesus want the secrecy? And why didn't they listen? It seems counterintuitive.
The insight from the study is really helpful here. It suggests Jesus wanted them to see the spiritual healing, the deeper meaning of who he was and what he was doing. But all they were focused on was the physical. They saw the miracle, the restored hearing, the clear speech, which was amazing, but maybe they missed the bigger picture.
Significance of who was doing the healing.
Exactly. That he wasn't just a miracle worker. He was bringing God's kingdom, a new spiritual reality. They were stuck on the visible, maybe missing the invisible transformation he offered.
And that connects to today as well.
The study makes that connection explicit. It points out how some people put on big healing services or miracle services and schedule them like some kind of circus act.
Right. Very public, often theatrical.
Yeah, lots of hype and performance. And the study asserts pretty strongly that these are usually fake and are not what Jesus did in his ministry. It emphasizes that genuine faith and healing, like Jesus showed, aren't about performance. They're about real connection, real divine intervention, often happening quietly, personally. The focus of those big shows can miss the heart transformation that Jesus was always after.
Wow. So much to unpack in just one chapter. When you look back at this whole deep dive into Mark 7, what really stands out to you?
You know, connecting all these pieces, I think this study really gives us powerful tools for, well, discerning, right? Discerning between just going through the motions religiously, the outward performance, and that genuine inward faith that comes from the heart. It pushes us to look beyond what we do in our faith practices.
To why we do them.
Exactly. And to honestly ask if our traditions, whether they're church traditions, family ones, whatever, are they actually drawing us closer to God's core commands like compassion and love? Or are they somehow, maybe subtly, getting in the way, nullifying them like Jesus warned?
That's a powerful takeaway.
Yeah.
So for you listening, maybe here's something to think about. Consider a tradition you hold dear. Could be personal, something your family does, maybe something in your church community.
Yeah.
How could you examine it?
Yeah.
Not necessarily to throw it out. Traditions can be valuable.
Yeah.
But just to check in, to make sure it's genuinely strengthening your connection to what truly matters and not unintentionally overshadowing the heart of your faith. Something to reflect on.